You know, if you'd asked me a year ago what I thought homeowner drama looked like, I'd probably have joked about leaf blowers at dawn, or that one neighbor whose Halloween decorations never came down. I wouldn't have guessed I'd nearly lose my mind or my home going toe-to-toe with someone who treated HOA bylaws like the Ten Commandments. But that's how it goes sometimes. One day you're just a regular guy with a set of blueprints and a dream, and the next, you're at war. The day I first set foot on that land, my grandfather's land, I felt like I'd finally made it. It wasn't much to look at, honestly. The grass had gone feral, the old gate squeaked like a horror movie, and the driveway looked like it had lost a fight with a meteor shower. Still, 15 acres of wild, open space, it was all mine. I'd spent too long living in city boxes, hearing strangers argue through paper-thin walls. That day I could have stripped down and howled at the sky, and the only witness would have been a nosy crow. I had my coffee, my crew, and my plans. Literally the big old rolls of paper I'd been scribbling on since I was 22 and thought a breakfast nook made you an adult. By noon, the site was buzzing saws, whining hammers, clapping a whole chorus of chaos. I sat on my tailgate legs, swinging, trying to imagine the future sunlight pouring in those big southern windows, maybe a dog snoozing on the porch. Felt like I could finally breathe. That's when she showed up. I'll never forget the sound of those spotless white sneakers crunching up my gravel. This woman glided up in a blazer like she'd just left a courtroom, sunglasses big enough to land a helicopter on, and a leather folder clutched to her chest like a shield. You know that feeling when you're about to get scolded for something even though you haven't done anything wrong? Yeah, that hit me hard. She smiled, if you can call it a smile. More like she'd borrowed the expression from a shark. "You must be Mr. Miller," she said. "Karen Stafford, president of the Oakfield Estates Homeowners Association." I told her politely that my land wasn't part of her little kingdom. Separate parcel, no strings attached. She laughed, soft, patronizing, the kind of laugh that says, "Oh, you poor ignorant man." She started spouting off about community standards, wanting to see my building plans, talking like I owed her an explanation for every nail and plank. When I told her everything was legal and she could take it up with the county if she had a problem, her smile cooled a few degrees. She gave me one last warning look. "Don't be surprised if the community voices its objections." She turned and walked away, white sneakers kicking up dust, and I just stood there, heart hammering. I knew right then that this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Next morning, coffee in hand, feeling good. Until a sheriff's cruiser rolled up the driveway. Deputy Collins, polite as could be asked about illegal construction. I almost laughed. Who said that I asked, but I already knew. He looked over my permits, gave everything a clean bill, and said quietly, "We get calls like this sometimes. And we've dealt with her before. Not exactly comforting, but it became routine. Different deputies, same questions. Noise complaints, debris, unauthorized workers. Every day another knock, another interruption, another chance for Karen to try and wear me down. The crew started calling me the outlaw architect. Even the foreman, a grizzled guy who'd seen it all, was getting rattled. Some nights, sitting on the tailgate with a cold beer, I wondered just how far she'd go. I'd dealt with nosy neighbors before, sure, but this was siege warfare, and I was outnumbered. Then came the letters from the county. Anonymous tips about burning waste, about toxic leaks. Inspectors crawling over the site paperwork, piling up delays, stacking higher than my unfinished roof beams. Neighbors started to pull away, smiles gone tight waves, growing less enthusiastic cars parked further down the road. A flyer showed up one morning. "Stop the eyesore, protect our neighborhood." Grainy photo of my half-built house, wild, claims about safety and property values. Guess who'd made them? Karen, of course. She wasn't just fighting me, she was rallying the troops. It got weirder. One morning, the concrete truck for my foundation couldn't get in. Karen had parked her SUV sideways across the entrance, arms folded, waiting for me to crack. Preventing unauthorized commercial traffic, she said, all official. I called the sheriff again. Deputy showed up, told her to move, but by the time the truck got in, we'd lost nearly an hour. That wasn't even the worst of it. Next, I started finding my signs ripped down, replaced with angry red placards. "Danger, illegal building site," as if the neighborhood needed more drama. The sheriff advised cameras, so I put up a whole system motion-activated night vision cloud backup. I wasn't about to let her win by wearing me out. Of course she didn't like the cameras much. Showed up with an entourage from the HOA, clipboards and all, peering over the fence, taking notes, snapping photos. Community compliance survey, she called it, on land that wasn't even in her jurisdiction. I told her to stay on her side of the line, but she just smiled and scribbled something down. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's what the foreman called it. He wasn't wrong. Things escalated because of course they did. One morning I pulled up and saw a massive red banner stretched across my fence, illegal construction site, danger to community. Bright as a stop sign, tied so tight it left marks. I called the sheriff again. Vandalism, he called it. Asked if I wanted to press charges. You bet I did. And just when I thought the circus couldn't get any bigger, a city inspector showed up, anonymous complaint naturally. I handed over every permit I had, watched him measure, prod, inspect every corner. He left shaking his head, everything was in order. But every day it was something else. Facebook posts, more letters, texts from neighbors, some supportive, some not. But the worst was yet to come. It was just past midnight and my phone buzzed, motion detected on the north fence camera. I pulled up the feed and there they were, 3 guys in reflective vests, bolt cutters in hand, a flatbed truck idling behind them. My heart nearly stopped. I called 911, threw on my jeans, and raced down the drive. By the time I got there, the gate was half torn down, a bulldozer chained to the truck. One guy at the controls, the others poking around like they were casing the place. I killed the headlights, hit the floodlights. Bam! The whole site lit up like a prison yard. I yelled through the PA system I'd wired up after Karen's last stunt, "Police are on their way." Step away from the equipment. One of them bolted for the trees, the other 2 scrambled, but not before one dropped a thick envelope on the gravel. Inside, a contract signed by guess who, Karen Stafford. When the cops showed up, they took one look at the contract, shook their heads, and said, "This is criminal damage and conspiracy, not just trespassing." I didn't sleep that night. Even after the site was cleared, bulldozer hauled off as evidence, I sat on my porch staring into the dark, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Next morning, my lawyer called. "They've got enough to bring charges," he said. "That contract's the smoking gun." And sure enough, a couple hours later, I got word Karen Stafford arrested at her house, in her bathrobe, neighbors watching from behind the blinds. Fraud, criminal trespass, attempted property destruction, the whole book. Turned out she'd spent the last month trying to get my land annexed into the HOA, fake maps, forged signatures, the works. If that bulldozer had done enough damage, she'd planned to have the county declare it abandoned and claim it for the HOA. She almost pulled it off. The day of the trial, the courthouse was buzzing, reporters, neighbors, the whole circus. Karen looked pale, lawyer glued to her side, still trying to look like she was running the show. The judge, though, wasn't buying it. When the charges were read, her smile finally cracked. I sat through the whole trial, deputies talking about all those bogus calls, the contractor admitting he thought it was official business, the zoning guy showing off the fake maps, even the security footage of the break-in. When I took the stand, palms sweaty, I laid it all out. Every call, every complaint, every night I lay awake listening for trouble. Karen's lawyer tried to spin it, said I'd antagonized the HOA. I just told the truth. I followed the law. I wasn't going to let someone bully me out of my own home. When the verdict came, I barely breathed. Guilty on all counts. 18 months in jail, a hefty fine, banned from ever serving on any HOA board again. The judge looked her dead in the eye and said, "Your position in a neighborhood association does not grant you dominion over private citizens." About time someone said it. She was let out in cuffs, still muttering about how she'd been protecting the community. I just shook my head. Later, some neighbors apologized, said they'd believed her, thought I was the problem. It stung a little, I'll be honest. But I let it go. We'd all survived the storm one way or another. 6 months later, I threw a housewarming party. This time the neighbors came willingly, kids running through the yard, laughter bubbling up around the fire pit, folks bringing casseroles and pies instead of flyers and complaints. Even Susan, the neighbor who'd sided with Karen for so long, showed up with a houseplant and a quiet apology. I told her I never wanted to be a hero, just wanted to build a home. Now sometimes I stand out on that porch, beer in hand, looking over the land. The grass is green again, the scars of bulldozer tracks all but gone. No more banners, no more patrols. Just quiet. Inside my house is exactly what I pictured, sun spilling through wide windows, warmth in every corner, the kind of place that feels earned. And you know what I think about everything that happened, the nights I almost gave up, the way people can twist rules to hurt you, the neighbors who stayed silent and the friends who stepped up when it mattered. I learned something the hard way. People will go to wild lengths to protect their slice of power, even if it means stepping on someone else's dreams. But sometimes standing your ground isn't just about winning a fight. It's about showing that kindness, patience, and a stubborn belief in what's right can actually change things. So let me ask you, if you saw something like this brewing in your own backyard, would you stand up and fight or keep your head down and hope it passed? Where's the line between defending your peace and picking a battle worth fighting? I'd love to hear what you think, your own stories, the moments you drew your own line in the sand. That's my story. I'm finally home. And this time nobody's taking it from me.